Okay, these videos are going to be about Project 3, and this particular one is about finding a spot for your development, locating it, creating the polygon. So this is the Atlas sheet area that I showed as an example in class. Nobody has this one. It's in North Scituate, and I have it visualized similar to how you'll probably want to when you go about citing your development. So I have all my severe, my buffers, places I can't build in red. And then I have all of my, I have wetlands as a wetland pattern, also in red. I have blue, that will remind me that that's water bodies. I want to avoid those as well. Then my moderate soils are in orange. And then I have this vibrant green as my no restriction soils. So ideally you'd have some of those in your development site, but not necessarily. You also have in kind of this brown color, you have my roads. Just a reminder that all roads you can use need to be on the topo map. So make sure your roads are represented on the topo map. So first things first is one thing that might be easier to visualize this is if you remove some of the extra lines. So you can actually remove the outlines of your soil bodies and your moderate restrictions. If you go to the symbology and turn that to 0 outline width. So that just makes it a little clearer. All my orange areas are just solid orange. You're going to want to probably change that once you actually cite your development. So we talked about these 4 developments in our workshops, and I'm going to just go with one of these and start from actually this one over here, this diagonally placed one, and I'm going to go through the process of creating my development, doing things like adding roads, adding a park, adding housing lots, all the things that might be useful GIS approaches to someone working through this project. So I know that this is approximately 400 acres because I've calculated the geometry of this polygon. We can go into our attribute table of our developments and see that. So we can see that here we have all of these are 400 acres. This one in particular, we're going to slam this down at the bottom here. And if we select that polygon, so you see how I've selected all those other things. So we see this is actually 400.3963 acres. That's good. I've selected some of my moderate restrictions here as well. So what we can do to make sure we can't select those things is come up here to list by selection. You can turn different layers on and off from being selected. So we don't want to select, in this case, we don't want to select our roads, so we turn that off, we click that. We don't want to select streams, open water we don't want to select. We certainly don't want to select our buffers and our severe restrictions we don't want to select. Now we've currently selected moderate restrictions, so we also want to turn that off. We also want to turn off our watersheds and our boundary example. So all we want to be able to select at this point is our developments. Just remember this, it's up here in your table of contents. Other ones aren't nearly as useful, but this list by selection is kind of useful. List by drawing order, switch back to that, and then you can change the drawing order of your layers in this setting of the table of contents. So we want to clear our selection. This is approximately 400 acres, but how would I really know that? So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. If I'm in the citing, we turn off our developments in this case. If I'm in the citing my development stage of my project, I'm going to want to kind of use the measure tool up here on my tools toolbar. Click the measure, switch to area. So this is the area measurement. And then switch my units to acres. Mine are already there, but then I'm going to move this over to the side. And if I want to know if an area is approximately the right size for my development, I'm going to just create a polygon. And now this is not going to stay with you. This is going to be ephemeral data. It's going to disappear after you double click. But I'm just using it to kind of get to the picture of how large of an area do I have to create to include 400 acres in my development. So I'm getting there slowly. We kind of get, we're going to go down here, up here, Now we're getting the picture here that this is actually, to be more complex than what I was doing, I actually have quite a bit of problems getting to 400 acres. So I didn't quite make it. I avoided some of that green area, so I'm going to try one more time. Bear with me here. So you're going to have some severe restrictions in some of your atlas sheets are going to have severe restrictions in your final map. So don't be so afraid of putting some of those areas in. And in this one, I'm actually getting pretty close pretty quickly here, right? So if we go up here, I'll put 1 point down here. Then we see that this kind of complex polygon can be 400 acres exactly. So it'd be great if I could just take this and make it into a polygon, but unfortunately we can't. So the next step is to actually create a polygon. So I'm going to just remind you all on creating a new feature class in your geodatabases. So first navigate to your data, and I'm going to right click on my geodatabase and go feature class. And then we want to create something that's developments. Mine is going to be the second set of developments that I'm making. Make sure you're in Rhode Island State Plane 3438 if you can't find it. And then what might you want to add in here as a field? I'm going to add area, and this is going to be in acres, but we're going to have to calculate our geometry to get it as a float. And then I'm going to finish. So that adds that to our layers. I'm going to remove it. So now I'm going to just go through the process of creating my development. So you're going to start an editing session. Make sure you select what you want to edit. Click OK. My editor I'm going to bring down over here. Open my Create Features window with this button here. I already have it open, so I'm just going to open it up, click my developments, and then close it. So let's start. So what might be useful with this is the trace tool. But I'm actually not going to use the trace tool, but you all should be familiar with it. We talked about it when creating our watersheds. We talked about it in the last workshop. So I'm just going to use these snapping to kind of snap to my various areas that I want. So you don't want it to be too complex anyways, because you're not going to use little areas of your development that kind of are very peculiarly shaped, if you know what I mean. Those aren't going to be capitalized on if you have like a very small area that you could potentially put something, because you need at least 5 acres to put a housing lot on. So this approximately follows the shape that we created before that got to 400 acres. So I'm going to double click, and now we've got this complex polygon, and I'm going to open my attribute table, and I want to calculate my geometry. Make sure you hit the drop down menu here and put acres and click OK. So I've got 430 acres. So I'm going to have to cut some space off here, right? So you probably want to make this hollow in the center. So how do we edit our development? Just like you would edit anything else, you're going to reshape. So that's going to be on your editor toolbar. It's going to be here in the middle, reshape. So reshape should start on the edge. So since we're reducing it, it can actually start outside of it. So we're going to start over here, and we're actually going to just cut out some of this restricted area, because why not, right? Of anything that we have here, that's the least useful of all of our areas. So then quickly, we've got our table down here. We're going to recalculate our geometry. in acres. So we actually didn't reduce much there. But we'll continue with this and we will get a perfect area to develop. And we're going to again just cut out a little bit more of this severely restricted area. Make sure you switch to acres. So we're getting close. We'll do this one more time, then I'll leave it at that for this video. So calculate geometry again, and this is just the process you're going to have to go through as well to kind of get your perfect. So now I'm an acre and a half over. Again, that's probably acceptable. I'm going to just cut off a little tiny bit more, a sliver more. Just to kind of get us as close to perfect as we can. So now we're just over by 0.28. So that's really as good as you're going to get with your development. If you're within an acre, I don't think that's a huge problem. You're not going to get a huge advantage from having an extra acre in your development. So here's our finished product. So one last thing you want to check is how is this going to fit on your map layout? So you want to switch to layout view. Most likely you want to come down here to page and print setup. Open this up and you want to go instead of use paper print, uncheck use printer paper setting and go switch to tabloid. So this is what the paper in the back of the lab is, and you probably want it in landscape view. Switch to this and then make sure that when doing this that you have this ruler up here. If you don't have this ruler and you don't have this box around your map, you're not on your page and you will print nothing. So make sure you've always set this, and you can always zoom back to whole page and that will bring you back to this. If you've put this map box in some other location on your layout view, you can just copy it and then paste it into this area. So for example, I'm going to zoom out a ways. If I'm doing my visualization over here, I can just paste my map into this area again, so if I've lost it. So that's one approach to fixing those printing errors some people got. So we want to set our scale to 6,000. That's what you're going to be making the majority of your maps on in here. And then we want to capitalize on all that extra page space, leaving a little area for a title and some area for the map extras. Although you can put your map legend and stuff kind of can overlap. So this isn't going to actually fit very well until I come up here and I actually change my rotation. So rotation is the orientation, so this is going to change the direction of your north. So you see we've changed the orientation. Let's switch back to our layout view. And now we have much easier time setting this onto our layout view. So you see we can even actually give ourselves a little extra room to include our map information like our name, our date, things like that, legend, north arrow. Just make sure you're putting your north arrow on maps such as this because the direction of north is not intuitive in these. So like you're always supposed to add a north arrow, but be extra careful with it here. You can see that we've added a north arrow and it shows our north as the appropriate direction. So that's kind of some how-tos on citing your development. You can see this is fit on my 11 by 17 piece of paper that I'm going to print on. So now I'm ready to go on to things like adding roads, because you see that I have quite a few roads here. Let's make them a little darker, a little bigger. Well, you can see we have quite a few roads here. We probably want a few more if we're going to add enough lots. And the last thing you also want to check is check to see the topography. You see I have some areas that I'm not going to be able to build on very reasonably. This directly right here next to my road, I probably could have excluded that. This hill here, I probably shouldn't build on. These hills here, I probably shouldn't build on. Some of that corresponds with my severe restrictions, but most of it doesn't. The severe restrictions actually seem to be in a fairly, for as far as topography goes, a fairly flat area that would be nice to build in. But so it is. So we'll talk about some other approaches in the next videos. Thanks for watching.